Welcome back to A Celtic State of Mind. I'm Paul John Dykes. Tonight, I am delighted to be joined by Stephen Ray. Always a pleasure, Stephen. And every time we talk, there's been big changes around Celtic Park Way. Obviously, tonight's all about the game, but how are you feeling about everything else? You know, Martin O'Neill back, transfer. We're in the midst of another transfer window. One has come in. We want a lot more than that, though, don't we?
Yeah. I feel as if we need the men in black to come out with that pen and just say, forget the last 40 days.
I get that.
It should be known as the Wilfred nonsense era, because it was just a nonsense what went on. I felt sorry, like I said to you the last time, I felt sorry for him after the Dundee United game.
Yeah.
With the chants about, get to and stuff like that. But the fact that he just doubled down on his selections and his formation and just refused to budge, then that wanes. And then in the Rangers game, the first half, you're thinking, wow, this is like, where did this come from? But the last 5 minutes of that first half, I could see something changing. And then when Rangers equalised, it was all over. I think the biggest surprise is the Celtic board, pulled the plug, and on Paul Tisdale as well. But there's rumours going about that he was holidayed, if you want to call it, after the cup final, because Maloney's apparently been working on recruitment for the last few weeks prior to O'Neill coming back. But we're now paying for it, because if O'Neill came in and they said, yours to the end of the season, we would have had that time to assess the squad, get the feelers out for loans, permanent deals. And the fact is, Martin's not come into the 5th of Jan and he's playing catch up. And it looks like he's just scrapped the Paul Tisdale sort of potential signings. So, yeah.
This is the thing, that in fact, at all stages of the season, Stephen, we pour over every word that the manager says in the press conferences. And to be honest with you, we either want it one way or the other. We want honesty. And when we get it, we don't like it. So I was hearing yesterday Martin O'Neill being pretty brutally honest, and then people saying, wow, we're a shambles. Well, of course, we've been saying that for long enough. But fair play to Martin O'Neill for coming out and saying, look, I've knocked back a few guys here. I'm on the phone myself. We're working round the clock, and we are doing everything we can to bring the players in. I still think, and I'm wondering where you are in terms of your scale, your confidence meter. I'm still confident we're going to, at the beginning of the window, I said 4 or 5. So 4 at an absolute bare minimum. I still think we're going to bring another 3 in, Stephen, between now and the end of the window. Are you confident?
I'm not. I'm trying not to get I'm out on the road in my day job, so every time I get a chance to stop, you refresh, hoping for Celtic quick news or whatever it is, or Celtic news now as updating any. But it's frustrating. I'm trying not to get ahead, I think, because the last few transfer windows have just absolutely stung me in regards to, not getting what we need and not backing the manager. I just pray that there's not a chance on earth that they'll do this to Martin, but then I wouldn't put it past this board. In fact, I don't even know if it would be down to them no want to sign players. It's just whether they've got the ability to get these deals over the line, and that's where I think this is where not everybody liked Lawwell, or Lawwell wasn't everyone's cup of tea, but I think he had something about him, like an ability to, if something fails one place, he could pull it out the bag somewhere else. And it might not have been the player or the level that we needed, but he would still sort of, he'd more manoeuvrability, if you want to call it. Whereas I feel Nicholson, that's not in his makeup. He's never been a CEO until Celtic. And that's when you hear things about, Dundee wanted an extra cut $100,000 and he's had to leave the room and make a phone call.
I know.
You feel that Lawwell would have made that call, and this is not me sticking up for Lawwell. I just feel that he was more dynamic as a CEO, whether you liked him or no, or agreed with his policies or not. I think Celtic more than ever need a sporting director who's oversees transfers, given a budget, given a wage cap, if you want to call it, that needs. So say the top wage is $40,000 a week, and the top spend on a player's £10 million, and anything above those, would need a sort of board backing, so to speak. I think we need that. We can't have every transfer looked at and every wage, looked at. We need to employ somebody we can trust to do the job. And I think Maloney's been groomed for that. I don't think he's been groomed for manager. I think he's been groomed for sporting director.
Sporting director. I mean, I could see that. I could absolutely see that. I've been talking the last few weeks about how his stature and him as a character has almost been reinvented, Stephen, since he started working alongside Martin O'Neill, which, incidentally, I mean, it was thrown together, let's be honest. Obviously, Martin and Sean knew each other from Martin's first spell in charge of Celtic, but that management team was thrown together, absolutely. But it worked. And this is what I was saying yesterday. We were recording yesterday. This is Acsom. All will be revealed. And I said, I'm not quite sure why or how it worked, but it worked. And because of that, sometimes you just got to say, right, it is working, let's not change it. But change it we did. We were determined to change it. And that is why we're going into tonight's game against Falkirk. Tricky away game. And I've said to you already today on the messages, 1-0 and out of dodge, and I'll be happy. Any kind of win tonight, Stephen, is what I'm looking for. But we're only in that position because for 37 days we were an absolute car crash, weren't we, under Wilfred Nancy?
Yeah. I feel as if I get the feeling they actually didn't want to go with Nancy in the end, but I think they've probably made a commitment and possibly paid to terminate his contract because nobody stood next to him. He never got, you guys have spoken about it as well. He never got a proper press conference.
No.
He never got what every other manager gets is the CEO and the chairman by his side, shaking hands with the suit and, go through all the formalities. I get the feeling, and I'm not putting any credit on Nicholson or anyone else. I just think they went with it because they went too far down the road with it. But I also felt there was an issue in regards to O'Neill getting it full time is because he would hold the board's feet to the fire in regards to recruitment because he'd already made some noises about the squad not being anywhere near the level he was hoping. And, this board just, they have this model, they keep calling it. For me, the model is just, they put spread betting on and hope that if they buy 5, they hope that 1 or 2 come up. 100%. And the rest, if they can get most of their money back on the others, then they'll do that. Martin O'Neill, he's basically said that I want quality, and he's already said he's disregarded some names put in front of him.
I'm delighted to hear that, by the way. And it's like you're right. Every single time there's a financial statement, Stephen, they talk about this model, this recruitment model, and they'll stick to it because it's fared them well. And I've said before, what is the model? Because for me, the model is buy as many players as you can, and you'll find a nugget, and then that nugget will make you money. But the 80% of the punts that you're putting quite a huge amount of money accumulatively into actually ruins all the good work that you've done. I mean, for every Matt O'Reilly, you've got another 5-6 players that have cost you millions. So yeah, I do think that's been the model. Peter Law, everybody's time comes to an end. His time at Celtic has come to an end. I think the time is now. Time is now to completely refresh and restructure and bring Celtic into the modern day. I'll keep saying this for the next couple of days, but I did listen to a podcast. You shared it actually on the group as well. It's on YouTube, it's on Spotify, iTunes, etc. And it's Where's the Money Gone? And David Lowe is the guest. Go and listen to it because it says a lot of the stuff that we all talk about all the time, Stephen. But what I also found interesting was the broadcasting deals levelling out in some regions as well. And the fact that once that happens, your strength as a football club in Scotland is your fan base. So look after your fan base, increase the capacity of your stadium because it's going to become your biggest income stream. Even including Champions League riches, your fan base is your biggest income stream. Look after it. So when you get 2 people talking about football finances outside of the Celtic bubble, they're actually advising us as a football club to do what we are talking about all the time, Stephen. All the time we talk about that type of thing.
I knew about the French TV deal collapsing. The Italian TV deals pretty much collapsed. There's TV deals collapsing all over the shop. You'll notice that the amount of English Premier League games that are now on live, they've got maybe 7 games across 7 different channels live. The actual money per game, these TV deals is starting to decrease.
Yeah.
Just because Netflix and the younger generation are not consuming football the way they used to. You know, my son will come down and he'll watch from the first whistle to half time. He'll go and do something. He'll come back. He'll watch the second half, and then he's done. He doesn't watch any analysis of the game. Sorry, I couldn't even get that word out there. But and that's probably the same for him and all his friends as well. I'll watch the build up, the half time, the full time. I'll maybe watch the highlights, the other games. The younger generation are just not consuming football this way, so this is why this is happening. There's another podcast I listen to. He's not everybody's favourite. Is the former SPL head guy Roger Mitchell. So he's got a podcast called Are You Not Entertained? And he's on there with a couple of finance guys. One of them's worked in all the major banks and stuff like that. So they don't just talk about football; they talk about all the major sports, and they come at it from a fan's view, but they also talk about the finance side. So I've heard them speak about, these TV deals and how they're virtually just collapsing all over the shop. And this is where clubs like Celtic will, if they get it right and they fix the stadium and increase the capacity, they can actually bridge the gap. Maybe not to England, maybe not to Spain or even Germany, but some of these other leagues are starting to come back towards us financially. There's Bordeaux went out the game not that long ago. This is why clubs like Midfield, who see the opportunity, are buying into these African nations. Are setting up academies in these places, and this is why they're picking up the next big thing in Ivory Coast or Ghana or Chile. They've got a right winger from Chile who's a cracking player. These clubs are looking outside the box, and this podcast highlights that Celtic should be doing it, and I'm not doing it.
This is the thing, right? It might creep up on me if I'm just so focused on the goldfish bowl of Scottish football, Stephen, as a fan, as a podcaster. But it shouldn't creep up on the club, because the club are advised constantly, and you can rest assured, because this came up in David's conversation, that a lot of these things are pitched to Celtic. I mean, we're talking about data analysis. It's not new. It's not a new phenomenon. It's been around for a couple of decades, and companies have been pitching at Celtic for years and years, because to buy a license to a system costs money. It's all about, it's a very lucrative business. So these things have been offered to Celtic. We've knocked them back thinking our approach is better. And it's took until now, I think, or it has taken until now, rather, for the wider fan base to actually see it in full Technicolor. Because winning on the park, winning all the trophies, dominating Scottish football masks a million deficiencies. Let's have a wee chat. We've all had good nights in Falkirk. I don't know what your haunts were, but Ming, back in the day, was the Martel. Remember that venue? The Martel in Falkirk? No?
No, I never had the night out in Falkirk, if I'm honest.
You've never lived. You've never lived.
I think I only ever went to Brockville once, and it was Jackie McNamara's debut.
All right. Jackie,
it was a 1-0 win. From memory, it was John Collins may have scored. It was a 1-0 win, freezing cold night. That's my only memory away at Falkirk. I've got some horrible memories of Falkirk at Ibrox in the semi-final, and there was during the Hampden season we lost 2-0. I remember John Clark fired a 40-yard free kick in.
I remember that.
Yeah. I actually sat next to him in a flight to Cancun back in 2016.
His thighs. He's got the biggest thighs since Andy Tom. Hot shot Hamish thighs, John Clark.
I remember saying to my boy, this guy sitting next to us scored the winner for Dundee United against Barcelona in the UEFA Cup quarter-final, and he looked at me, he's like, Dundee United beat Barcelona?
Aye, more than once. I remember he ended up at Dunfermline, and he was always good for a Kappa tracksuit. He was always selling Kappa tracksuits. That's another story. Here's the lineup for tonight. There's Arnie Engels, back in favour, back in form. Starting 11 is the same as the weekend, with one change. Hattati out for the top goal scorer, Benjamin Nygren. So the team is as follows: Schmeichel, Araujo, Trusty, Scales and Tierney, McGregor, Engels, Nygren, Yang, Tunekte and Maeda. We'll have a look at the bench as well. Let's start with the back five, Stephen. I'm looking at that thinking, well, other than Araujo, we had all the guys under Nancy. He didn't want to play it. I'm pretty chuffed with that. I think that's a solid back five. I mean, Schmeichel, when Martin O'Neill came in, a lot of people were saying drop him, bring in Sinisalo. The time is now. He gets a clean sheet at the weekend against Dundee United. Did he?
I'm not convinced with Sinisalo, if I'm honest.
None of the managers have been either.
And I think Martin he likes big characters and big voices in the dressing room, and I just feel that although Schmeichel is definitely on the wane, I think he sees him as a big character and is needed, just need him to save some shots right enough. But I can't see Schmeichel getting dropped unless he's seriously struggling with this injury.
I'd agree with that. I just think to myself, and it's the same as Simpson Pusey, for example, Ian Moura before he went out on loan, Shin Yamada. When a few managers have had a look at a player, Stephen, and they're seeing him at training and they're seeing how they're integrating with the squad, and they don't get a run in the team, I think it speaks volumes. Seriously,
three different managers not even on the bench.
I know. Stephen Welsh comes back from Motherwell, not on the bench. Balaquis is a strange one because it's one of the guys that nobody will be wanting to put their fingerprints on that particular find. Everybody, when somebody comes good, everybody's keen to say, I scouted him, I identified him, he's my player. But the Balaquis thing, £5.2 million at this stage, at the threat of sounding harsh, a complete waste of money. He's up there with some of the worst signings at this stage, Stephen. And
it's looking that way, isn't
it? Yeah. What do you do with a player like that? How do you try and squeeze some kind of quality out of that deal? Or is it just a foregone conclusion that he's going to leave?
I think the problem is unless we sell him in January to the MLS or one of these other seasons, now the other leagues that doesn't match our calendar year, so to speak, I don't think he can go anywhere because you can't play for 3 clubs, as far as I'm aware, in one season, and he's already played for Royal Antwerp. So, yeah. The thing is, we've not really seen enough of him, and we've not seen him in what he's considered his best position as a 10. So, we've bought him as a left winger. I don't know. I really don't know. It's looking that way that if that's 3 managers that have looked at him and not played him. So yeah, it's looking ominous for him, to be honest.
It really is. And you're right. Again, it's another indication of the dysfunctional nature of our recruitment. I'm sorry, guys, for mentioning that again, but we needed a right winger. We bought what we thought were 2 left wingers. Then we established that one of them doesn't even like playing left wing, and he's more, as you say, as a number 10, which was a position we weren't deploying at the time. You're not going to get a game in front of Nygren, who's your top goal scorer, and when you look at his assists as well, very, very productive. And behind him, Hatate dropping to the bench. There's always this promise that you're going to get a performance out of Hatate, and I thought he played well under Martin O'Neill in Martin's first 8 games this season, Stephen, but his consistency has been questioned since he walked in the building. I mean, he played his best football under Ange, but he was always hit or a miss. I remember having this conversation with JP, the type of guy that can change a game, but then the caveat is always on his day. And that basically means this guy's inconsistent. He's got the ability, doesn't do it often enough. And that's where Hatate is with me at the moment.
Celtic need someone to be 7 out of 10 minimum every week. And the occasional 8 out of 10. Hatate is either an 8 or a 2. And it's not even like he's an 8 3 weeks in a row. He's an 8 once, and then he's nowhere for 2 or 3 games, and then he flashes up in the big game at Feyenoord and stuff like that. So it really frustrates me. I would personally sell him this January if we can. I don't even know if he's up for the fight either. He just looks moody, huffy. I would look to replace if possible.
He's become a passenger, isn't he? He's become a passenger in
it. It feels that way. I mean, I know Anil's had a few good performances out of him, but he's just too inconsistent for what we need. And I think we've got enough cover in the 10 position. We seem to be playing more like a 4-4-1-1 under. People think a 4-3-3, but it feels like more a 4-4-1-1, with Nygren or Hatate almost playing like a deep line striker.
Yeah.
I think McKeown could play that role. Nygren clearly can play that role. I don't. Even Engels, Bernardo says he's a 10 as opposed to a defensive, and he's another player that's just fell out of favour altogether as well. So But I don't. Bernardo's got a good attitude. I think Hatate's quite a difficult character from what I've heard. So, but I don't know for a fact. You hear things and you can only look at. And I'm not a body language expert either. But
We
you
all
look
are.
at,
We all are.
yeah. But you just never feel. You never feel he looks happy.
That's true. The thing with Rio is, again, going back to the manager test, multiple manager test, is when did he play his best football? I would say under Ange, but Ange left a number of seasons ago. So we can't be looking back 3 seasons. And we're falling into this trap and maybe just holding on to players that wee bit too long. Some might even argue CCV's in that category. Rio certainly is. Diaz Maida is at the moment, but I'll tell you what, we need him more than anything just now. When I look at the back four, the other player I want to mention tonight is Kieran Tierney. Kieran Tierney, when it became clear that we were bringing him back, Stephen, the conversation, you might have noticed it as a viewer at the time, a lot of the comments were undeniably on the side of this guy's injury prone, you know. But I was just looking at it earlier on today, 30 appearances for Celtic. He's obviously been playing for Scotland this season as well. 10 goals and assists from a left-back position. And for someone who, I think a lot of people would say, oh, you know, inconsistent in and out, I think very slowly and gradually, he's come into the team. He's starting to play more and more 90 minutes, which was a massive concern for us earlier on in the season. And I don't think he's anywhere near hitting what is now his top form, but he is getting a level of consistency, Stephen.
Well, he's had to play a couple of different systems, and then even with Scotland in the game he scored against Denmark, he was playing right centre back when he came on. So he's been getting chopped and changed. I think the problem we had was at Arsenal, he was only getting maybe 5-10 minutes every 3 or 4 weeks. So to go from that to be first pick left back to play 90 minutes, it has taken him a while to get up to speed. But I just think my frustration with Tierney, especially under Rodgers, even in the first spell under Rodgers, is he goes back a lot when he's definitely got it in him to drive forward or even pass forward. I just feel that his first option is always back to the centre back or back to the keeper. So that's my only sort of gripe with him. But fitness wise, I think he's been fine. I think he's been managed pretty well, to be fair. I wouldn't be surprised if he's managed himself and told the manager 60 minutes. And if when Sarachi comes back and hopefully he's fit, you know, you've got a more than capable backup on the left-hand side.
Yeah, I'm a big fan. I like what I've seen with Sarachi. When we move into the midfield then, and I think at the moment, it's probably the best midfield we've got because of the issues that we've been talking about with Hatate. And it's Engels, McGregor and Nygren. And what I find interesting about Nygren is he's one of the guys that can frustrate. He can be inconsistent. He's definitely not got a ton of pace. But look at the stats. 32 appearances this season, 11 goals and 6 assists. So he's 17 goal contributions this season, Stephen, and that's in 1,900 minutes of football. So he's played less football than Kieran Tierney, but in terms of goal contributions, he's right up there. He's at the top of the tree. I do like him as an impact sub. He showed a really good composure to score the other day there against Dundee United, but I do like him as an impact sub when the opposition's tiring a wee bit, and sometimes we see the worst performances when he starts. 1.7 million quid, a Swedish international, 27 years of age. Now, if we're going to give the club stick for Balikwisha, I think we've got to look at Nygren and say, tidy bit of business.
Yeah. I still don't think he's... If we want, when you think of the level we want to be at, I don't know if he's, you know, would be, if you had your ideal situation with you know, get good recruitment and stuff like that, I think he'd be a good player for the bench and would maybe play bottom six and stuff like that. So, sorry, I've got my dogs trying to sneak in. Yeah, give me 2 secs, Paul.
No problem at all. Someone the other day, right, and I'm going to qualify this before I even mention the two names in the same sentence. Someone the other day was talking about putting him in mind of Tom Rogic. Now, I think the reason for this was the kind of lack of pace. Tommy Rogic was never a fast player. He was never blessed with speed, and he certainly didn't rely on it, Stephen. But I've just picked a random season from Tommy Rogic's Celtic career, 2017-18, to have a look at his goal contributions, just as a random, and I've picked it out. He played 41 games in that particular season, and he scored 8 and assisted 9. So he got 17 in the entire season, and Nygren's got that just now. Now, I'm not saying Nygren's better than Rogic before anybody has a meltdown, but it came up in the comments that he put the commenter in mind of a Tommy Rogic style character, somebody that can pull something out the bag, isn't always involved in the game, maybe playing on the periphery of the game at times, but he has got it in him to turn a game, Nygren. And I think that Matt O'Neill's good for him. We've seen the interview in the dressing room when O'Neill was apparently leaving after the Dundee game, and he had a lot of praise for Ben Nygren, called him his 4th favourite Swede. I can't remember who the other 3 was. One of them was obviously Emmerich Larsson. Was one of them Bjorn Borg, maybe? And maybe Mjalby or a member of ABBA, I'm not sure. But he was the 4th in the list. And I think now what we need from him is consistency, Stephen.
Yeah. I think sorry, but I had 2 small dogs trying to jump my lap. I think the difference with Rogic is his goals stand out. They're spectacular winners in the last minute. They're mazy runs in the cup final. There are goals against Rangers multiple times from outside the box. That I think that's why Rogic will always stand out. Nygren strikes me as the guy who'll score, the 3rd in a 3-0 win type thing.
Yeah.
It's like Lee Griffiths was kind of accused of that a wee bit, that he always scored in the games that we were winning well, but he was never like the guy who scored the 1-0, in the last minute type thing. So I think if he can add that to his game in the bigger games, and because his goals are spectacular enough, but they're inside. He likes the roof of the net, but they're all inside the box. I can't think of anything he scored outside the box now, the way Rogic. The one that sticks out in memory with Rogic was the last minute away to Kilmarnock, when Aberdeen could have went top that day if Celtic drew, and then he pulls it out the bag from 30 yards. So if he can add that to his game, but then that you run the risk of him being greedy and shooting from distance, and it's like, there was better options on. So I'm not complaining. For the money we've spent on him, I think it's so far good value for money. I think he's a good squad player. I think long term, I don't think he's what we'd be looking for as a main sort of number 10 or sort of secondary striker, if you want to call it. I'd be looking for better.
If you were to bring in a starter, you would be so much happier that your squad was improving if Nygren was back up to that. Yeah, massive game tonight, absolutely. And I think the respect was shown in Martin O'Neill's press conference pre-match. It was ABBA, reminds us my ball. It was. He gave the whole ABBA, didn't he? Henrik Larsson, ABBA, Bjorn Borg, and then Ben Nygren. Up top then, Yang. Are you in the Yang gang yet, Stephen, or were you always a paid-up card-carrying member?
No, I've never been in the Yang gang, if I'm honest. He's had a good run, but for me, the problem with this transfer window is if we're going to try and make an attempt with the 2 last games in Europe, we can't sell anyone until the Utrecht game's done, because we can't register any new players at this stage yet. Again, Yang long term, Yang's the kind of guy in this current form you're looking to come off the bench and make an impact. For me, I don't think he's a long-term starter. He's only just started to show it in the last few weeks, but that was during a period when Celtic were losing 6 out of 8. So he had a couple of decent games under Martin's first spell, but he's doing well just now. If he does it consistently from now to the end of the season, I may change my mind on it. But then he's not at Jota's level when Jota's in full flow. So, yeah, I think if a really good bid comes in from him, I think I'd be looking to take, because ultimately this squad just has shown it's not good enough and can't be trusted.
No, you're right. And apparently we are still looking for a right winger, of course. Tuneke returned to the side on the left wing against Dundee United. I thought he did okay. And Maida finally got his goal, but missed a few chances himself. In the backup positions, though, we have Sinisalo, we've already spoken about him. Luke McKeown, Johnny Kenny, Bernardo, Hatate, Murray, Forrest, Donovan and Ralston. Quite a few defenders on the bench. Who's your game changer on the bench? Do you think we've got one? Who's your game changer there? Is it a Hatate moment? Is it, bringing on even Jamesy Forrest all these years later when he's been written off so many times? I look at that bench and I think it's weak.
It's very weak. Forrest is your best bet for a goal off the bench, personally. Hatate, if he's in the mood, may create, but you can't rely on him for goals. And Kenny's he's not at the level, unfortunately.
He's not, and I think again, playing under a few different managers, he's shown that he's not going to fit in. I'm just keeping a wee eye on the game. We're about to kick off here, Stephen. You go with your two pups and go and enjoy the first half. Everybody else, thanks for joining us. We will be back at half time, so go and enjoy the first half and join us at half time on a Celtic State of Mind.